Giridharadari Jaya Giridharadari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Jaya Giridharadari Jaya Giridharadari Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Jamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Vihari 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya So, Deutsch oder Englisch? Wer versteht kein Englisch? 1, 2, 3. Who doesn't speak English, German? 1, 2, 3. So 3:3 wieder. Welche Richtung wollt ihr lieber übersetzen? Also du willst ins Deutsche übersetzen? So, we're gonna read in English. We're reading from the Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 10, which is known as the opulence of the Absolute, verse 11, 12? 11. So this is the last one of the famous Chatur Shloki. Very, very beautiful verse. So Please chant after me. Tesham evanukampartam. Tesham evanukampartam. Aham ajnana jam tamaha. Aham ajnana jam tamaha. Nashayami atmabhava atmabhavastu. Nashayami atmabhavastu. Jnana dipena vasvata. Jnana dipena vasvata. Tesham evanukampartam. Aham ajnanajam tamaha. Nashayami atmabhavastu. Jnanadipena bhasvata. Tesham evanukampartam. Aham ajnanajam tamaha. Nashayami atmabhavastu. Jnanadipena bhasvata. Tesham evanukampartam. Aham ajnanajam tamaha. Nashayami atmabhavastu. Jnanadipena bhasvata. Tesham evanukampartam. Aham ajnanajam tamaha. Nashayami atmabhavastu. Jnanadipena bhasvata. Ladies. Tesham evanukampartam. Aham ajnanajam tamaha. Nashayami atmabhavastu. Jnanadipena bhasvata. Word by word, please repeat. Tesham, for them. Eva, certainly. Anukampana artham, to show special mercy. Aham, I. Ajnanajam, due to ignorance. Tamaha, darkness. Nashayami, dispel. Atmabhava, within their hearts. Staha, situated. Jnana, of knowledge. Dipena, with the lamp. Vasvata, glowing. Translation on purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. To show them special mercy, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of ignorance. Sorry, shining lamp of knowledge, the darkness born of ignorance. One more time. To show them special mercy, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge, the darkness born of ignorance. Purport. When Lord Chaitanya was in Benares, promulgating the chanting of the Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, thousands of people were following him. Prakashananda Saraswati, a very influential and learned scholar in Benares at that time, derided Lord Chaitanya for being a sentimentalist. Sometimes philosophers criticize the devotees because they think that most of the devotees are in the darkness of ignorance and are philosophically naive sentimentalists. Actually, that is not the fact. There are very, very learned scholars who have put forward the philosophy of devotion. But even if a devotee does not take advantage of their literature or of his spiritual master, if he is sincere in his devotional service, he is held by Krishna himself within his heart. So, the sincere devotee engaged in Krishna consciousness cannot be without knowledge. The only qualification is that one carry out the devotional service in full Krishna consciousness. The modern philosophers think that without discriminating, one cannot have pure knowledge. For them, this answer is given by the Supreme Lord. Those who are engaged in pure devotional service, even though they may be without sufficient education and even without sufficient knowledge of the Vedic principles, are still helped by the Supreme God, as stated in this verse. The Lord tells Arjuna that basically there is no possibility of understanding the Supreme Truth, the Absolute Truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, simply by speculating, for the Supreme Truth is so great that it is not possible to understand Him or to achieve Him simply by making a mental effort. Man can go on speculating for several millions of years, and if he is not devoted and if he is not a lover of the Supreme Truth, he will never understand Krishna or the Supreme Truth. Only by devotional service is the Supreme Truth Krishna pleased, and by His inconceivable energy He can reveal Himself to the heart of the pure devotee. The pure devotee always has Krishna within his heart, and with the presence of Krishna, who is just like the sun, the darkness of ignorance is at once dissipated. This is the special mercy rendered to the pure devotee by Krishna. Due to the contamination of material association through many, many millions of births, one's heart is always covered with the dust of materialism. But when one engages in devotional service and constantly chants Hare Krishna, the dust quickly clears one is elevated to the platform of pure knowledge. The ultimate goal, Vishnu, can be attained only by this chant and by devotional service, and not by mental speculation or arguments. The pure devotee does not have to worry about the material necessities of life. He need not be anxious, because when he removes the darkness from his heart, everything is provided automatically by the Supreme Lord, who is pleased by the loving devotional service of the devotee. This is the essence of the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. By studying Bhagavad Gita, one can become a soul completely surrendered to the Supreme Lord and engage himself in pure devotional service. As the Lord takes charge, one becomes completely free from all kinds of materialistic endeavors. Om Agyanati Mirandasya Gyanam Gyana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Suyuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Tesham evanukampartam aham agyana jantamaha nashayam yatma bhavasto jnanadipena basvata. To show them special mercy, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. So this is a very beautiful verse. It's the last one of the Chatur Shloki, the 4 essential verses of the Bhagavad Gita. And it is a very encouraging verse, because in this verse he says to show them special mercy. Evanukam partam. To show them special mercy. Krishna actually makes an extra endeavor. So, and Prabhupada is emphasizing very strongly in this whole purport how actually a devotee, by his practice and devotion and sincerity, actually attains knowledge. So generally the idea would be that, you study, you memorize, and then you have knowledge. But actually, practically, we know that in German there's also the saying, probieren geht über studieren. Not yet, almost. Probieren geht über studieren, they say in German. So that means to, just to try it out goes above theory. Nrsimha Bhagwan ki jai, Prahlad Maharaj ki jai. So, yes, practical application is much more valuable than theory. Theory is only as valuable as we apply it. If we don't apply the theory that we carry within us, it actually becomes a burden. All the theory that we carry within can become a burden. And many devotees have this experience, and I've also taught about it. Especially I remember a lecture from Gadadhar Prabhu from the Vedic Academy in Berlin. And he gave once a very interesting lecture for the Sunday feast in Berlin, Saturday feast. We always have Saturday feast in Berlin. And he said that if you memorize a lot of mantras, and if you read a lot of books and you accumulate a lot of knowledge, it becomes a burden if you don't actually understand it, first of all, and even more importantly, if you're not able to apply it. If you don't have a practical application for this theoretical information, it actually becomes a burden. And we know also this analogy that is given by Srila Prabhupada, that one should actually receive knowledge and pass this knowledge on just like the water that is flowing through a lake, it says. So if a lake is supplied by water, and the water is flowing in, and then there's another part where it's flowing out, then that lake remains fresh, vibrant, and alive. And Prabhupada says, but if a lake only has a little bit of water coming in and no real way for it to get out, then it remains stuck. So he gives this analogy that if you just accumulate knowledge without understanding it, applying it, but also sharing it, then you will become like a dead, rotten lake. No life. A lake where the water is flowing through remains fresh, and many fish can live there and plants grow. So we know that by explaining actually something, you learn much more than just by memorizing or reading it. You all probably have to some extent this experience. And I forgot the figures, but there is some, quantification even. To what extent you learn something by reading it, to what extent you learn by reading something aloud, by what extent you learn something by hearing somebody talking about the same topic, and to what extent you actually learn by repeating that to somebody else. So actually teaching is the best way of learning, you could also say. Actually teaching is the best way of learning. And this is also related to this dynamic that we hear about in Chaitanya Charitamrita, that it says there that if you have mercy, if you are able to capture some mercy, then the question is, what do you do with this mercy? I got some mercy, okay, keep it for myself, because who knows when I will get mercy again, and I'm only able to get such little small mercy, so better I keep it for myself. But the dynamic actually that is explained is, if you get some mercy, then this mercy, if you give away some of it, to the amount that you give away, your capacity to receive increases. So then you have a bigger capacity, so then you have more mercy, so now you can share more, and then your capacity again grows, and this goes on and on and on and on like that. So yes, by sharing mercy, we actually gain much more mercy. Our ability to, you could say, capacity to receive becomes bigger the more we actually share. And a very practical application of the point that Prabhupada is describing here, Srila Prabhupada quotes in the 4th canto when he describes Prithu Maharaja's deity worship. Prithu Maharaj. Prithu Maharaj actually performed very elaborate, very amazing deity worship. And there Srila Prabhupada describes how just by worshipping the deity, decorating the deity more specifically, if you decorate the deity with beautiful flowers and ornaments and garments, by this practical devotional activity of dressing the Lord, because dressing the deity is like dressing Krishna. Actually, when you perform deity worship, it's very much in the mood of Vatsalya Bhava, it says, like a parent, when you have a small child, you have to, in the morning, you have to brush the teeth for the child, and you have to bathe it, and you have to dress it, So in a very similar way, actually the deity worship is very much in Vatsalya Bhava. And interestingly, Srila Prabhupada recommended to us that we should emulate especially the style of worship of Radharaman. Radharaman in Vrindavan, Padmanabha Goswami was a very good friend of Srila Prabhupada, and they are very, very Paka Goswami line, in the Gaudiya Vedanta line. They have the same philosophical conclusions as we have, and they're very learned also in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And Srila Prabhupada guided his disciples that we should actually emulate the style of worship that they have. So it's very interesting. There is a very nice YouTube clip. It's called, somebody knows this clip? The Mellows of Rasa, something like this, about Radharaman. It's a very nice clip. And this clip describes the style of worship Radharaman. So the style of puja at the Radharaman temple is from South India. The style of arati, is like in South India, because Gopal Bhatta Goswami, he came from South India. He was from Srirangam, from South India. So the style of worship in Radharaman temple is lamps, many lamps, And we see also here at Simhachalam, we also have a strong influence, South Indian style of aratis, a lot of lamps, big lamps, and especially for special darshans, we just do lamps, 10, 20 lamps. Then the style of cooking in Radharaman is like in Jagannath Puri. They have the style of, they took all the different, even recipes, and the style of cooking is like in Jagannath Puri. And in the Radharaman temple, the fire of the Radharaman temple has been burning non-stop, since, 500 years, more or less. So this fire is always burning. And if you get some luck, you can take some prasadam there. You should take prasadam in Radharaman temple. If you have some connections, you can get, Radharaman Mahaprasadam. You get served in the kitchen, you can see this old kitchen. It's very amazing. There's also some amazing clips about this kitchen. When they mix, I think there's some sweet or a halava, and they mix it, and then this flame goes all the way to the roof, and this halava is ready, for Radharaman, traditional recipe. And the mode of dealing with the deity is in Vrindavan style, and it's very much Vatsalya Ras, so Vatsalya Ras, it's taking care like a child, like a child. You always make sure, he's happy, he has enough to eat, he's dressed properly, and you have to make a lot of different special, not just the same darshan every day, that's boring, So Radharaman, sometimes, like right now, I think he's riding on a big silver elephant, and at other times, when it's Bhagavad Gita Jayanti, he gets a chariot, and he can drive on a chariot, around the altar, And at one point, the Goswamis, they even built a ship for him, a big ship, for Radharaman. And in the summer, he gets mango leaves, the whole altar is decorated with mango leaves, and then they make rain, monsoon rain. They imitate them. The whole altar is raining, or they decorate the whole altar with stems of the banana trees, and fruits, And then sometimes Radharaman is very much behind, Sometimes he's a little bit shy, so he goes to the last corner of the altar, So he's very, very far behind, And sometimes he's a little bit more in the mood of, engaging. Then he's at the very front, very close. You can almost touch him. So Radharaman is a very special deity because it's a self-manifested deity actually. Self-manifested deity. It was Gopal Bhatta Goswami who went to Kaligandaki in Nepal. It's the deepest gorge in the world. I think it's 5,000 meters or something, this gorge, very deep valley, Kaligandaki. And in this gorge, you can find the Shalagram Shilas. So he went there on pilgrimage, and he took some water from the river, thinking, just to get some water. And then some Shilas were inside. I was like, no, I cannot worship Shilas, so he put it back, And then he took again the water, and the same Shilas again inside, So this happened a few times, and then he knew, okay, I'll take them, So he took them from Nepal back to Vrindavan. And then some wealthy Vaishya actually donated a lot of jewels, ornaments, garments to Rupa Gopal Bhatta Goswami, but he couldn't really use them for, the Shalagram Shilas. Shalagram Shilas usually are, we also dress them with some crowns and cloth, but generally, Shalagram Shila traditionally often is just worshipped with Ganges water and Tulasi, Srila Prabhupada says, And also Advaitacharya, worship the Shalagram Shila with Ganges water and Tulasi leaves, that's it. So he had this desire to use all of these items he had to worship Krishna. And then on the night from Trayodasi to Chaturdasi, or maybe from Chaturdasi to Purnima, I'm not sure. But on the night before or after Chaturdasi, the Shalagram Shilas transformed into a deity. And it's a very special deity. It's very small. It's like this size only, Radharaman. And it's very fine. The Shalagram Shila stone, it's almost impossible, very difficult to carve actually. Some people carve it, but it doesn't look very nice. It splitters, So the deity is made out of Shalagram Shila stone, but it's absolutely detailed, very thin fingers. You can even see the teeth of the deity, Very unique deity, self-manifested, a self-manifested deity. And Srila Prabhupada explains that if we follow this, standard of deity worship and just decorate the form of the Lord, all the conclusions of the Vedas will become revealed to you from within. All the conclusions of the Vedas will become revealed to you just by decorating the form of the Lord. So this is no ordinary process. This is not just dressing some puppets. This is something very, very elevated. If you have the right understanding, the right training, the right attitude, the right sincerity, one can gain incredible benefits just by worshipping the deity, decorating the deity. So yes, and the key word you can remember is Jnana Dipena Basvata. Those three words. Jnana Dipena, Dipena means the torchlight. Jnana Dipena Basvata. So with this torchlight of knowledge, Krishna is within the heart. And there's this famous verse, where does it go? Krishnera Surya Sama Maya Haya Andakara Tahan Krishna Jahan Krishnan Mahan Yara Adhikara. So Krishna is like the sun, Maya is like darkness. Wherever there is Krishna, there cannot be Maya. So very simple logic. The more Krishna is revealed and present within our hearts, naturally Maya, ignorance, lusty desires, all of this just disappears, is removed by a higher experience of Krishna consciousness. So because today is Jagannadas Babaji's disappearance day, I shortly want to talk about him as well. Jagannadas Babaji is called Vaishnava Sarvabhauma. Vaishnava Sarvabhauma. So he's the emperor among the Vaishnavas, he's called, very often also. Vaishnava Sarvabhauma. And he was a Babaji, very simple, he lived very simply. And actually, we know from there's a very nice book called The Seventh Goswami. It's about Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and it explains very nicely the relationship between Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and Jagannadas Babaji. Actually, they would always, spend time together, all three of them, and they will discuss, and elaborate on spiritual topics. And we heard about Gaur Kishodas Babaji some time ago already, how he was illiterate. He was illiterate. He couldn't read or write. And devotees would read to him the scriptures, and he would then give commentaries. So Jagannadas Babaji, somebody knows his pranam mantra? I forgot. Namo Jagannath, Namo Gaura Kishora Sakshat Varagya Murtaye Vipralambara Sambhade Parambujayate Namaha. So this is Gaura Kishodas Babaji. And then Jagannadas Babaji is Vaishnava Sarvabhauma, and there was something before. Anyway, we know that Jagannadas Babaji, he is very much completely absorbed into the transcendental realm, into the Aparakrita Lila, the internal pastimes, of the Supreme Lord. Gaura Bhava Prometum Nidishtana Sajnara Priyaha Vaishnava Samabhauma Jagannatayate Namaha. Gaura Virbhava Bhumishtam Nirdishta Sajjana Priyaha. Gaura Virbhava Bhumishtam Nirdishta. So he was preaching the mellows of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in this world. And he's Sajjana Priyaha. He's very, very intimate devotee of the Lord. And one of the most amazing stories about Jagannadas Babaji is how he confirmed the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He confirmed the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We see in the picture. Soon we will get a new picture. I need to find some time, but we got a new picture of Jagannadas Babaji. Today would be actually a good day to install it, but it didn't work yet. One Mataji made a new picture, very nice picture, but he's always sitting like this, a little bit hunchbacked. He was very old, over 120 years, as far as I remember. He was very old. He became very old. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur was very sure, that this area, Mirpur, was called before. No, Mirpur was like a Muslim name. Mirpur, this is Mayapur. Mirpur is Mayapur, and there was an area where so many tulasi plants were growing. So he was sure this is the place where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was actually born, the actual Yoga Pita. So he took Jagannadas Babaji, who was very old, and he was carried in a basket actually. They would put him in a basket and carry him like this, So they brought him to this place. And when they approached this place, what happened? Jagannadas Babaji, he jumped out of the basket, And even he was so old, he started dancing, wild. So this was the proof, how much Gaura Vibhava Mishtanidishta, So he established, he proved, he showed, how this is the place where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was actually born. And I think, as far as I remember, not too long after that, he actually passed away. So, Jagannadas Babaji Maharaj ki jai. So maybe there's some question, comments.
Just small addition on the question about what you mentioned, that we learn something the best by teaching it.
Mm-hmm.
I heard not so long ago that the first 25% we get by hearing,
Mm-hmm.
and the second 25% we get by asking questions.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third one is by reflecting upon it, about the topic. And the last one, the last 25%. I don't know if the percentage is accurate, but the last part we get by teaching something.
Usually the percentage is much bigger with teaching. Yeah, it's much bigger. I don't know the percentage. I only know about communication. Communication is also like that. Like what you say, the words that you say, it's only 7% in communication. The tone of voice that you use, is I think 30 or something percent. And then your charisma, your body language is the rest. And it's a very similar with how much we learn actually by teaching. Yes.
One question about when you mentioned that the knowledge is revealed by decorating the deities. So
Mm-hmm.
for those who still do not do it, is it the same effect when you're like doing the deity worship in the form of singing or?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. I mean, I mentioned this specifically because I was talking about Radharaman, and Srila Prabhupada gives a very beautiful purport where specifically, he even quotes a verse which says, by decorating the deity, all the conclusions of the Vedic scriptures are revealed from within the heart. But of course, this is true for all the different paths of devotional services. This is what Prabhupada is explaining again and again, you know, that you don't need to really read the philosophy, even understand it, you know, if you are sincere. So the sincere devotee engaged in Krishna consciousness cannot be without knowledge. You know? So the sincerity is the key. If you have sincerity in your devotional practice, Krishna will from within reveal. And I'm talking about deity worship because I have a little bit realization there that it's true. You know? Sometimes we read and read and read and read, and it's like, you know, you just become tired and you don't really understand. You know, it becomes a burden. You don't really you cannot really taste it. You know, of course you can also worship, you know, the Bhagavad Gita through your, you know, intellect. But there's even this amazing story of this Brahmana in South India who was, you know, holding the Bhagavad Gita like this, you know, upside down, you know, and was crying, you know, crying and crying. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked him, you know, how are you? And everybody was making fun of him, you know, this like funny, you know, Brahmana, you know, he doesn't know how to read, he's trying to read, you know, he's holding it upside down, you know, and he's crying the whole time, you know. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recognized that his crying was not an external lamentation, you know, of incompetence. His crying was a very genuine emotion, actually, you know. So he said, you know, if you cannot read, you know, then why are you doing this? You know, well, it was the order of my spiritual master to read Bhagavad Gita, so I'm trying. You know? I'm following the order of my spiritual master. I'm trying to read, you know. He said, yeah, but if you don't really understand what is spoken, then how come you have so much emotion? And he said, well, all I know is that Krishna, you know, in the Bhagavad Gita, you know, he was driving the chariot of Arjuna. And this is so amazing, you know. Krishna was willing to be the chariot driver. And for those of you who don't know, the chariot driver is like in the social system, is below the Kshatriyas. You know, the Kshatriyas, the warriors, they are, you know, in quite elevated position. But the chariot driver, he's, you know, of a lower social position, because the Kshatriya will kick on the back of the chariot driver, you know, go to the right, go to the left, you know. So Krishna has no false ego. You know? Krishna just, you know, loves his devotee and he's ready to go in this position. And so Arjuna was kicking Krishna, you know, with his feet. You know, pam, pam, you know, go this direction. And it's in the middle of a battlefield, probably there's a lot of kicks, you know. It's like, this side, you know, you're like, you know, trying to. So this Brahmana, just by, you know, the simple, sincere realization, you know, and he really understood, okay, this is Krishna, you know, Krishna has so much devotion for his devotees, you know, and that's made him cry. So even he couldn't read, he had, of course, understood the conclusion of the Vedas, you know, like that. It's okay? Okay, anything else? Okay, I just wanted to mention one more time that, like we mentioned in the Ishtagoshti, the lecture should go until around, you know, 7:30, and then some questions, comments, and I really urge you to read the whole purport of Srila Prabhupada, you know, and not start giving your commentaries before you actually finish reading the commentary of Srila Prabhupada. If you're a great scholar, maybe you can start commenting beforehand, but then still you should time your lecture in such a way that you're done on time and you finish reading the whole purport, you know. So I think that's a very reasonable standard to follow. Hare Krishna. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.